Have you ever poured your heart and soul into growing potatoes, only to dig them up at the end of the season and find a handful of pathetic, pebble-sized spuds? You watered them, you watched them grow into beautiful, towering green bushes, and you thought you were going to have enough food to feed your family for the whole winter. But the reality under the soil was completely different and utterly heartbreaking. What if I told you that the problem is not a lack of effort, but rather that you missed one tiny, secret window of opportunity in the late spring? Today, we are going to talk about the absolute most important thing you must do in your potato patch right now in May. If you apply this one unbelievably simple, lazy gardening trick, I promise you will be pulling out massive, heavy potatoes that will make your neighbors green with envy. But beware, because this advice completely goes against what your grandparents probably taught you about farming. Stick around, because the secret I am about to share will save your back from hours of heavy labor while literally doubling or even tripling your harvest. To understand why this single May chore is so vital, we need to take a quick journey inside the mind of your potato plant. Think of a potato plant as a factory with a very limited daily budget of energy. In the early spring, all of that energy budget is spent on building the factory itself, pushing up thick green stems and spreading wide leaves to catch the sun. But as the weather starts to warm up in May, the plant reaches a biological crossroads. It has to make a critical decision about the future. Will it spend its energy trying to reproduce above the ground by making flowers and seeds? Or will it store that energy underground in the form of big, starchy tubers? In the wild, the potato wants to do both, but it prioritizes the flowers because that is how it spreads its seeds to new places. However, as gardeners who want food, we do not care about potato seeds at all. We want the underground storage tanks to be as full as possible. If we just leave the plant alone right now, it will dump up to 30% of its precious energy into those pretty little blossoms. Our job as smart, lazy gardeners is to step in and forcefully redirect that river of energy back down into the soil where it belongs. The very first part of our critical May task is what I call the great energy pinch. As you walk through your garden right now, you will likely notice tiny clusters of flower buds forming at the very top of your potato plants. They might be white, pink, or light purple, depending on the variety you planted. While they look beautiful and might tempt you to leave them for the bees, you must harden your heart. Your job is to pinch off every single one of those flower clusters the moment you see them. You do not need any fancy tools or pruning shears for this. Just use your thumb and index finger to gently snap the bud off the stem. By doing this simple, 1-second action, you are sending a powerful chemical signal to the plant. You are essentially telling the potato factory to shut down its above-ground production line. Instantly, all the sugars and carbohydrates that were rushing upward to build those flowers are forced to make a U-turn. They travel right back down the main stem and are pumped directly into the swelling tubers hidden beneath the soil. This single, effortless pinch is the difference between harvesting golf balls and harvesting baked potato giants. You might be wondering if pinching flowers really makes that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. Let me paint a picture for you using simple garden math. Imagine your potato plant produces 10 flowers. Each of those flowers requires a massive amount of water, nutrients, and sunlight to bloom, and eventually form small, toxic green berries that contain the actual seeds. The energy required to grow just one cluster of those useless berries is equal to the energy needed to grow one large, heavy potato underground. So, if you leave 10 flower clusters on your plant, you are essentially throwing away 10 large potatoes from your final harvest. For a lazy gardener who wants maximum results for minimum effort, letting those flowers bloom is a terrible return on investment. By walking down your rows once a week in May and snapping off the tops, you are doing the highest leverage task possible. It is peaceful work, it requires zero heavy lifting, and it guarantees that your soil nutrients are not being wasted on something you cannot even eat. It is the smartest 5 minutes you will spend in the garden all week. Now, let us talk about a very dangerous myth that circulates among many traditional gardeners. Some people believe that you must wait for the potato plant to fully bloom and for the flowers to die back naturally before the tubers will start to grow. This is completely false and will ruin your chances of a bumper crop. The truth is that tuber initiation, which is the fancy scientific term for when the plant starts making potatoes, begins weeks before you ever see a flower. The potatoes are already down there, growing slowly, right as the very first tiny buds appear on the top leaves. If you wait for the flowers to open, the plant has already spent its savings account. The energy is gone, and the tubers will pause their growth to support the blossom. As a smart gardener, you must strike early. Do not wait for the petals to unfurl. The moment you see that little cluster of green buds, snap it off. You want to interrupt the process before the plant makes its expensive withdrawal. Early intervention is the key to tricking the plant into an endless cycle of underground storage. The second half of our crucial May task is where the true lazy gardening magic happens. Once you have pinched off the flowers, you need to address the soil. Traditional farming advice tells you to grab a heavy metal hoe and start dragging mounds of heavy dirt up around the stems of your plants. This is called hilling, and it is exhausting, sweaty, backbreaking work. It also destroys the delicate soil structure you have worked so hard to build. But we are not going to do that. Instead, we are going to use the power of deep mulching. Right after you pinch your flowers, I want you to bring in a massive amount of straw, old leaves, or chemical-free grass clippings. You are going to pile this fluffy organic material right on top of the soil, tucking it tightly around the stems of your potato plants. You want this layer to be at least 6 to 8 inches deep. This thick blanket of mulch replaces the need for heavy dirt hilling completely. You are achieving the exact same goal, which is covering the growing tubers, but you are doing it without lifting a single shovel of heavy earth. Why is this deep mulch layer so absolutely critical right now in May? It comes down to temperature control. Potatoes are a cool weather crop at their core. They absolutely hate hot soil. When the late spring sun beats down on bare dirt, the soil temperature skyrockets. Once the dirt reaches about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the potato plant panics. It completely stops growing tubers, no matter how much water or fertilizer you give it. The plant goes into survival mode. By piling on that thick 8-inch layer of straw right now, you are creating a powerful insulation barrier. While the air temperature might be getting hot and sweaty outside, the soil beneath that straw remains incredibly cool, dark, and damp. It feels like an air-conditioned basement for your potato roots. Because the soil stays cool, the plant never receives the signal to stop producing. It just keeps pumping out bigger and bigger tubers week after week, blissfully unaware of the approaching summer heat. This one lazy step buys you weeks of extra growing time. Let us dive deeper into the magic of this deep mulch blanket, because temperature control is only the beginning. The next biggest threat to your May potato patch is inconsistent moisture. Potatoes need a steady, reliable supply of water to swell up. If they dry out and then suddenly get soaked, your potatoes will crack, split, and become deformed. They will look like strange, alien artifacts instead of smooth grocery store spuds. Bare soil evaporates water incredibly fast under the spring sun, forcing you to drag the heavy hose out every single day. But our lazy gardener mulch layer acts as an automatic irrigation system. When it rains, or when you do water, That thick straw acts like a giant sponge. It traps the moisture in the earth and refuses to let the sun steal it away. You will find that you only need to water a fraction of the time compared to traditional gardeners. You can go days or even a full week without worrying about your plants drying out. You are saving your own time and energy while providing the absolute perfect, consistent environment for the roots. There is another hidden benefit to skipping the heavy dirt and using straw mulch in May. It has to do with how the potato actually forms. Potatoes are not roots. They are actually swollen underground stems called stolons. These delicate stolons shoot out horizontally from the main plant, and they need space to expand. When you pile heavy, compacted dirt on top of them, they have to fight against the weight and friction of the earth to grow larger. This uses up valuable energy. But when you use light, fluffy straw or leaves, the stolons encounter almost zero resistance. They can expand rapidly, swelling into massive potatoes with perfect, smooth skins. Because the mulch is so airy, oxygen flows freely down to the root zone. Plant roots actually need to breathe oxygen to survive and process nutrients efficiently. By keeping the dirt away and using a breathable blanket, you are creating an oxygen-rich paradise where the tubers can expand freely and happily without any struggle. We must also talk about the dreaded green potato syndrome, which is a major issue as we move deeper into spring. As your tubers grow larger, they naturally push their way upward toward the surface of the soil. If a potato peeks out of the dirt and gets hit by sunlight, it undergoes a chemical reaction. The skin turns green, and it produces a toxic substance called solanine. Eating green potatoes can make you very sick, so a sunburnt crop is a ruined crop. When you rely on traditional dirt hills, heavy spring rainstorms often wash the dirt away, exposing your precious potatoes to the sun. You have to constantly go back and rebuild the hills. But our deep 8-inch layer of May mulch solves this problem permanently. Straw and leaves do not wash away in the rain. They interlock and form a protective, sun-blocking roof over your crop. Even as the potatoes grow huge and push upward, they remain safely hidden in the dark beneath the fluffy blanket. You will never have to throw away a green, toxic potato again. Now, let us tackle the topic of weeds, which is every gardener's worst nightmare in May. This is the month when dormant weed seeds wake up and explode out of the soil, threatening to choke out your vegetables. In a traditional dirt-hilled potato patch, you have to constantly hoe and pull weeds by hand. If you do not, the weeds will steal all the water and nutrients from your crop. But remember, we are practicing smart, lazy gardening. The thick layer of mulch you apply right after pinching your flowers acts as the ultimate weed killer. It completely blocks the sunlight from reaching the surface of the dirt. Without sunlight, weed seeds simply cannot germinate. The few aggressive weeds that do manage to sprout will exhaust themselves trying to push through 8 inches of heavy straw. By the time they reach the surface, they are weak, pale, and easily plucked with 2 fingers. You have effectively eliminated hours of sweaty, frustrating weeding chores with one single application of mulch. As you are out there observing your plants and applying your mulch, you need to be very careful about your feeding schedule. May is a tricky time for fertilization, and many well-meaning gardeners make a fatal mistake right now. They look at their potato plants, decide they want them to grow bigger, and dump high-nitrogen fertilizer all over the bed. Nitrogen is the nutrient that makes leaves grow bright green and huge. But remember our energy factory analogy. If you give the plant a massive dose of nitrogen right now, it will abandon tuber production entirely. It will say, "Wow, look at all this fuel for leaves," and it will start growing a massive, towering jungle of greenery above the ground. You will have the most beautiful potato bushes in the neighborhood, but when you harvest, you will find absolutely nothing underneath. In May, You must strictly cut off the nitrogen supply. The time for growing leaves is over. It is now time to focus exclusively on the roots. So, if we are cutting off the nitrogen, what should we be feeding our potatoes in May? The answer lies in two critical elements: phosphorus and potassium. These are the heavy lifters for root and tuber development. Phosphorus helps the plant transfer energy efficiently, while potassium is directly responsible for bulking up the size and weight of the potatoes. If you feel your soil is poor, now is the time to apply a gentle, organic source of these nutrients. A light dusting of bone meal for phosphorus, or a watering with a diluted kelp or seaweed extract for potassium is all you need. Better yet, you can sprinkle wood ashes from your fireplace very lightly around the base of the plants before you put your mulch down. Wood ash is packed with potassium and will help swell those spuds to enormous sizes. But remember, as a lazy gardener, less is often more. If you prepared your soil well in the spring, your plants likely have everything they need. Only feed if you see signs of struggle. While you are doing your pinching and mulching, you must also become a smart observer of your plant's leaves. The leaves will tell you exactly what is happening beneath the mulch. In late May, you might notice the very lowest leaves on your potato stems starting to turn a little bit yellow or brown. Many new gardeners panic when they see this, thinking a disease has struck their crop. They rush to spray chemicals or overwater the plants. But let me put your mind at ease. The yellowing of the lower leaves at this stage is a completely natural biological process. The plant is smart. It knows that those bottom leaves are now shaded out by the upper canopy and are no longer producing energy through photosynthesis. So, the plant purposefully drains the life out of those bottom leaves, pulling the remaining mobile nutrients up to the top of the plant and down into the tubers. It is a sign that your plant is shifting gears exactly the way it should. Ignore the yellowing bottom leaves and focus entirely on the health of the new growth at the top. There is a hidden community working for you right now, and your May tasks directly impact them. I am talking about the soil food web, specifically the earthworms and beneficial microbes. When you choose to mulch instead of aggressively digging and hilling dirt, you are protecting billions of microscopic helpers. Traditional hoeing slices through earthworm tunnels and exposes delicate fungal networks to the destroying ultraviolet rays of the sun. But beneath your thick, undisturbed straw mulch, a party is happening. Earthworms love dark, moist environments with lots of rotting organic matter on the surface. They will rise to the top layer of the dirt right beneath the straw and go to work. They eat the decaying bottom layers of your mulch, digest it, and leave behind worm castings, which is the most powerful, nutrient-dense fertilizer on the planet. By simply doing nothing to the soil, you have hired an army of underground workers who will fertilize your potatoes for free 24 hours a day. Let us discuss a watering myth that ruins many harvests around this time of year. Because you want big potatoes, it is incredibly tempting to drown your plants with the hose every single afternoon. You think more water equals bigger spuds. But potatoes do not grow in swamps. If the soil remains soaking wet and muddy, all the microscopic air pockets in the dirt fill up with water. The potato tubers will literally drown and begin to rot from bacterial infections. This is called blackleg or tuber rot, and it turns your beautiful harvest into a smelly, mushy disaster. Your goal is soil that feels like a wrung-out sponge, damp but not dripping wet. Thanks to your lazy mulch layer, you will rarely need to add water. Before you even think about turning on the hose, push your hand past the straw and feel the actual dirt. If it is cool and slightly moist to the touch, walk away. Learning to withhold water and trust the mulch is one of the hardest psychological steps for a gardener, but it is absolutely essential for a healthy crop. Pest control in May can feel overwhelming, but our smart approach changes the game entirely. The most notorious villain in the potato patch is the Colorado potato beetle. These little striped bugs will show up right as your plants get lush and green, and they can strip a bush bare in a matter of days. Traditional advice says to spray harsh pesticides everywhere, but as a lazy gardener, we use observation and physical barriers. When you are out there pinching your flowers, flip a few leaves over and look for clusters of bright orange eggs. If you see them, just squish them with your thumb. It takes 2 seconds. Furthermore, that thick layer of straw mulch makes it incredibly difficult for the overwintering beetles to emerge from the dirt and climb up the stems. They get lost and trapped in the maze of straw. By changing the environment, you severely disrupt their life cycle without ever opening a bottle of toxic chemicals. A healthy, stress-free plant grown in good soil can easily outpace minor pest damage. Let us talk about the concept of companion planting and how it affects your May potato routine. You might have planted things like onions, garlic, or bush beans near your potatoes early in the season. Now that the potatoes are getting massive and bushy, they might start casting deep shade over their neighbors. This is a crucial time to make sure your companion plants are not suffering. The beauty of the flower pinching method is that it actually helps control the unruly vertical growth of the potato plant just a little bit, keeping the canopy slightly more manageable. If your potatoes are totally swallowing up your other crops, do not be afraid to aggressively trim a few of the outer potato leaves to let light into the surrounding beds. Potato plants are incredibly resilient. Trimming a few rogue branches that are shading your carrots will not hurt the tuber production, especially since you have already redirected the main energy flow by snapping off the flowers. You must also be prepared for the strange phenomenon of the second growth spurt. Sometimes, after you meticulously pinch off all the flower buds in late May, the plant will stubbornly try to push out a second round of tiny blossoms a week later. The plant desperately wants to reproduce above ground. Do not get frustrated by this. It just means your plant is highly energetic and healthy. Simply make one more pass through the garden and snap off those secondary buds. Think of it as a gentle reminder to the plant about who is the boss. Once you win this brief battle of wills, the plant will finally give up on making seeds and surrender entirely to building massive potatoes. This brief period of persistence is exactly why you need to visit your garden with a cup of coffee at least twice a week. It is not hard labor. It is just a pleasant morning stroll where you observe, pinch, and guide nature to do exactly what you want. As May comes to a close and you move into summer, your potato plants are going to undergo a dramatic visual change, and you need to be mentally prepared for it. After weeks of looking like lush, vibrant green giants, the plants are suddenly going to start looking a little bit ragged. The stems might flop over, the leaves might lose their deep green muster, and the whole bush will look like it is getting tired. Many beginners panic at this stage and try to revive the plant with emergency fertilizers or floods of water. You must resist this urge. This flop is exactly what is supposed to happen. The plant has finished its vegetative cycle and is now collapsing to pour every last drop of life force down into the earth. It is sacrificing its beautiful body to make your food. If you followed the one crucial rule of pinching the flowers and laying down thick mulch, you can look at those collapsing plants with absolute joy. It means the magic is working. Let us summarize the incredible efficiency of this one lazy gardening method. By committing to this simple May routine, you have bypassed the need for a tiller, a hoe, and chemical fertilizers. You have avoided the back pain that comes from dragging heavy soil into mounds. You have saved yourself hours of holding a watering hose, and you have eliminated the tedious chore of pulling spring weeds. All you did was walk down the row, Use 2 fingers to snap off some tiny flower buds and dump a pile of organic matter around the base of the stems. That is the true essence of self-sufficiency. It is not about suffering for your food. It is about understanding plant biology and using natural systems to your advantage. You have transformed yourself from a stressed-out farm laborer into an intelligent conductor, simply waving your hands to direct the energy of the garden. The final part of this process is simply exercising extreme patience. Once you have pinched the flowers and laid the mulch, your active work is completely finished. You are now entering the glorious waiting period. For the next month or two, your only job is to leave the potato patch entirely alone. Do not dig around in the straw to check on them, as this can break the delicate stolons. Just let the cool earth and the redirected energy do their quiet work in the dark. Trust the process. When the plants finally die back completely and turn brown later in the summer, your harvest will be an absolute breeze. Because you used straw instead of packed dirt, you will not even need a shovel. You will simply pull back the mulch with your bare hands and pick up perfectly clean, massive potatoes resting right on the surface of the soil. It feels like finding hidden treasure, and it is the ultimate reward for working smarter, not harder. And there you have it, the ultimate secret to growing an absolute mountain of potatoes with almost zero physical effort. Who'd have thought that simply snapping off a few tiny flowers and dropping a blanket of straw could completely rewrite the rules of gardening? By stopping the plant from wasting its energy on useless seeds, and by keeping the soil cool and moist without ever touching a shovel, you have guaranteed a harvest that will fill your pantry for the entire winter. You have officially graduated to the master level of lazy, smart gardening. The small effort you put in today in May is going to save you weeks of heavy labor and frustration down the road. I hope you are excited to try this energy redirection technique on your own potato patch. If you found this secret helpful and you want to learn more ways to get massive yields with minimal work, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried pinching the flowers off your potatoes, or were you taught to leave them alone? Drop a comment below and share your potato growing experiences. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next Garden Update.